Okay, let's go. Well, today's guest is someone that I've spent probably 18 months trying to pin down. So I'm glad that we're actually here today doing it. So I'll just introduce my guest a little bit before we dive in. So Melanie has been working in visual merchandising for over 20 years now, has held down an incredible variety of roles within the field, including working for brands such as New Look, Accessorize, Gymshark, and most recently heading up visual merchandising for MUJI Europe. And now she is a consultant partnering with brands such as HOKA, Wax, and most recently also, was it Dior? Yeah. So it's a strong lineup of brands. So today we're not going to be really talking so much about the specifics of the brands, but I really want to kind of go into more detail about some of the key lessons that you've learned along your visual merchandising journey and how they can potentially help other people that are taking this kind of journey the same as that we have. So that's really going to be the focus of the conversation today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me at last. I'm glad we've made it work.
Yes. So I asked this question of all of the guests at the beginning, so we can kind of dive into this slowly. But the idea of the Display Kid podcast came from a time at the beginning of my career where it was used as more of a derogatory term to kind of refer to what we do in a visual merchandising profession. Look, the display kids here to make things look pretty and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm really interested to understand what is your version of that or your experience.
I mean, it definitely started as a window dresser, which I think was a classic term for VM before VM was a thing, sort of 15, 20 years ago. I was working in a department store as a student in the perfumery section, and there was a lady dressing the windows. And I was like, that looks like an amazing job. How can I harass her and give her a hand? And I would say to present day, I still don't really know how we describe who we are and what we do. Certainly people who are not in the industry, when you're just making chit chat at a party or in the pub and I say I work in VM and they say I have absolutely no idea what that is, I kind of just loosely say, oh, it's just everything visual to do with a shop. And they probably think I'm an architect or a store designer. And I'm like, no, it's kind of more everything that's in the store, the layout, the styling, the signage, the windows. And I don't think we've ever really got to anything better than a window dresser or the display kid, like you said.
I think every visual merchandiser has that moment where they know they're going to get asked what they do. They know that person's not going to really understand what it is, and then they're going to want to try and move through that conversation as quickly as possible. What do you think is the biggest misconception about visual merchandising and maybe more of the creative angle of it?
I just think people not in the industry don't really give it any thought. You just walk into a shop, everything's there, it looks nice, it makes you subconsciously buy things. What they don't understand is maybe the 6-month process leading up to that and all of the teams involved to get that layout right, to get that signage or that digital content right, to get that creative marketing campaign come to life in a store. It's all of the behind the scenes that just appears like magic. And then people say, oh, I've never really thought about it when I've walked into a store. And especially if you're working on a global scale, it's not just that one store. It's that every store across the world is also following that same layout, that same signage, that same creative. But no one's really given any thought to how we've got there. I think that's the sort of interesting angle from our field.
You've just mentioned there something that's, I think, super interesting around, I think maybe a lot of people's preconceptions of visual merchandising is you have to be the uber creative person. Yeah. But a lot of what you just spoke about was more of the operational side around it. Maybe you can give a bit of color to that. Or what kind of VM are you?
Yeah, I'm a process VM. I think creative VM certainly comes in the ideas along the journey, but it's also very much in the store in the moment. So when you have to pivot because, a window scheme hasn't arrived or bits are missing or the delivery hasn't come with what you're expecting, that's where you probably have to be quite creative to adapt the guidelines. I think working head office side, you need to be creative at the outset and collaborate really closely with the creative teams, because it's about bringing the product story to life or bringing the marketing campaign to life in a retail environment. But really, for me, it's the process, the journey, the collaboration cross-functionally, and all of the things that need to happen in the lead up to that moment in store. That's the bit that I love about it, actually. Less of that creative, and certainly not the end result. I'm all about the journey.
It's funny, I was scrolling Instagram this morning and something came up that I think is probably relevant to this conversation, which is they were talking about individuals that get to the very top of their profession, and they were talking about the one thing that kind of puts you at that like 1% level is likability. So you can be the most like talented creative in the room, but you also have to have that likability factor. And that, to me, really in our profession refers to the ability to talk to the other functions in a way that they understand and feel comfortable with. Do you agree with that? Or
Yeah, I totally agree, because we work with so many different teams. We're kind of the end of the food chain, but we're also running alongside all of the food chains as we go. So whether you're speaking to a merchandising team and it's very much facts and data, delivery dates, what do we need and when, whether it's working with a very creative team and you're brainstorming ideas and thinking about how we bring that to life. I think the vast amount of departments that we would work with in an organisation, that's where you almost have to adapt your communication and what they need from you. So that likability is, I think it's just understanding different departments and the personalities that come with those departments to get what we need, sort of the information wise, to get that final new store opening, window scheme, whatever project it is that we're working on.
do you think that's been something that's helped you with your career?
Yeah, that's another favourite of my part of the process, is that cross-functional collaboration. And I'll happily sit down with the merch teams and go really deep into space planning and Excel spreadsheets. But I know, weirdly, I really do like that, actually. Or a super highly creative department, like a brand team, where you're, all really getting creative ideas, and, it's the meetings are quite exciting. Yeah, it's that variety is something that I've always loved along the journey. Yeah.
Amazing. So we're going to get into your first lesson, and that is that success isn't what you think it is. So before we kind of dive into this, maybe you can give me your definition of what is success to you?
So we spoke about this recently, because I think this is a very interesting one of what is success in VM, because you can certainly measure success in commercial sales, and you could do something that sales-wise has really worked, but actually visually it's a bit and it's not necessarily been received that well, but commercially it's done what it needs to do. Equally, you could do something that's super well received by internal teams, by public, post on social, but maybe it's not driven the commercial results at that moment in time. But equally with VM, it's so hard to measure, because if you've done a pop-up, an installation, any kind of sort of creative project, you don't know what that has driven either. Have people then got brand awareness that they hadn't before, and actually they've gone online to buy something? Have they then engaged with social media? So success, you can certainly look at a data sales result, but I think in VM it's so much broader than that. And I've definitely had projects over the years which have been a success commercially and not well received internally, and vice versa. And I'm like, is that a success? Is that a failure? It depends what side of the coin you're looking at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things about being a visual merchandiser is you are working with so many different functions, with so many different that have their own measures of what success looks like, and I think that it's really difficult, and I'd love to get your take on it, that do you actually think that it's possible within a retail corporate environment to be able to please everyone?
No, definitely not, because a brand team will be looking at a different result to a commercial team. And if you're clear from the goals from the outset, is this project to drive footfall? Is it to drive brand awareness? Is it to increase sales by X amount? You can definitely measure that, but we're all going to be measuring it in different departments of what we're looking for to reach, different people's KPIs. So no, I don't think you're ever going to appease everyone.
How have you maneuvered that? Like, are there certain departments or functions you've aligned yourself more with, and you found that that's driven you more success, or do you have to kind of tailor it towards the specific project? But I'm interested to understand, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think in VM you have to be very resilient, because essentially a lot of what we do is subjective, and you'll get a lot of opinions, a lot of changes. You'll do a walkthrough and there'll be various changes from different people. Sometimes it might just be changing a small thing for the sake of changing it to participate, and we're all just used to cracking on with that. I'm a very straight down the line analytical person, so I'd find it much easier to measure data and then not dwell too much or not take anything personally or too deep on the creative feedback.
So we've touched on success within the role, but let's kind of dial that out a bit and talk about your view of success within a career setting. What does success look like to you in terms of having a visual merchandising career?
This has changed a lot over the years, depending where I've been in my life and what brand. I think everybody starts off wanting money, job titles, progression. I think over the years it's more, for me, job satisfaction and feeling really proud of something that I've achieved, and just that buzz you get with the team when you've delivered something really great, whether it is a new store opening or it's an event, and that buzz you have after that satisfaction is super important to me. Job title now really means nothing, certainly as I've gone self-employed. And I think the amount I've travelled so much is, I see that as such a perk to the job, which comes as you kind of climb up the ladder as well. So I feel very fortunate of a lot of the projects I've been a part of and places I've been to visit. But certainly that textbook, money, job title, progression, no, it's about that, the feeling and the experience that's come alongside the role.
You've obviously transitioned from more of a corporate background to more of a consultancy background. What did you feel that there was maybe something in you that was pushing you more to, maybe your behaviors and values, etc., to take this leap and try this new direction, or or have you taken that direction and now it's given you more insight into what you value, etc.? Was it almost beforehand you had a feeling and then you did the jump and it's reinforced it, or did you make the jump and then you got the feeling?
I think I made the jump and then I got the feeling. So freelance is something I have thought about for a long time. It's something that I've really considered, because I really prefer project work. I like coming in, having a problem, fixing it, whether it's reviewing process, ways of working, just overhauling how a department runs, or in some roles there has been no foundation to the department and I've built the VM team up. That I love, less of the day-to-day. So my ideal kind of roles are to move around to different brands and just really look at the problems and what we can do to fix it. So freelance feels like a natural step where you just do project after project rather than being in a role for a long time and just sort of working through the BAU. I thought it would be something that I'd be quite nervous about, because it's the unknown. You never know what work's going to come when, where you're going to be. But I really like not having routine as well. So actually that balance and that feeling of success and that feeling accomplished in the projects you're doing, you definitely do get from the freelance. So it's definitely reinforced that was the right move for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I know you mentioned that a lot of people have been reaching out to you on LinkedIn and following your journey and what that looks like to move from a corporate environment where, you know, we're led to believe that we have that like unlimited security to more of this freelance world. But I think a lot of people are going to be moving more into this consultancy way. And then I think for me, again, somebody told me this, I can't remember who it was, but like true intelligence is about building the life that you want to live. Whereas I think that success when I was a kid was, you know, being the best at school, having the best exam results, and that was never me. I tried, but I was never at that pinnacle level. But I think that, yeah, success is really about just building the life that you want, and it definitely feels like you're in that area now.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is almost the calmest I've been in years, which, like I said, I didn't expect, because you're taking a leap into the unknown. But actually the unknown is quite calming. And just that balance, and I don't mean balance as in really putting in the graft and the hours, because that's fine. We do that in VM, we're used to that. But I think having that feeling on a Sunday night, because you know the week you're about to tackle or all of the internal politics or, you know, things so widely outside of VM that you have when you're in a corporate world. You don't have that when you're freelance, because you work with the brands you want to work with. It's kind of on your terms. You're also so deep in the work, which when you're in a corporate role and you kind of climb further up the ladder, you're a bit detached from the work sometimes. Whereas in a freelance, I go in and I've got a specific task list of VM items that I want to get through. And it's amazing how much you get done in 8.5 hours when you're not doing any of the other day-to-day as well.
Yeah, you don't realize how many like calls you're being bogged down on that you don't need to do.
Totally.
No, completely agree with you. Moving on to the next question that I had down here, which was there ever a moment you achieved something you'd worked towards only to realize it wasn't what you expected?
I mean, there have been certain projects, I suppose, like we spoke about at the beginning, where they're not as well received as you think they're going to be, and you've worked for a long time on a project, and then internally, if it's been criticised, it's, you know, a lot of people have pulled together on certain projects, so it's not what you've anticipated. But I definitely think, going back to the resilience, you just have to try and take the emotion out of VM, because it is just so many different opinions, and try not to dwell on that kind of criticism or feedback.
No, love. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, what are you proud of today that has nothing to do with your job title? Could be anything.
Oh, it's people. It's the teams that I've either managed, worked with, collaborated with.
What about them?
Oh, I've just met so many great people over the years. I've got friends for life from pretty much every brand I've gone in. And then on a level of management, also just seeing teams develop. That is so important to me, is spending time with my team and creating opportunities for others for their progression. And there have been so many people in my teams over the years who have been promoted maybe even into another team that's not VM, because their pathway's taken them on a different journey, and we've kind of recognised the skill set. So I've just been so lucky to work with so many great people. It's my 40th birthday party coming up, and it's going to be like this weird LinkedIn mingling session with every brand I've ever worked of VM teams in one room in fancy dress. So I'm quite looking forward to that. But it's the people.
I can relate to that. My wedding was basically like 10 tables of different people from different brands from different times in my career. It was literally like some store managers conference.
Yeah,
We always
exactly.
laughed at our wedding. And then my old boss, Chris Amplo, who's now the president of Europe for Michael Kors, he was the compere. So it really did feel like a store managers conference.
Giving out awards.
Yeah, it was. I
team.
wasn't as well behaved at my own wedding though that I was. I was always very well behaved at store manager conferences because I'd seen people that weren't and what happened to
Always.
them. Yeah, I think that for me, I'm the same as you. For when it comes to the thing that I think a really good measure of success is, and that I love, is I've still got members of my team that I may have only managed for 6 months, 12 months, even, a lot of them longer than that, but they'll call me up for a chat. Sometimes they'll call me up because they want to kind of talk through stuff, and I'll have to promise that I'm not going to like confidentially I'll not going to speak to other people that I know within the business, but I'll be advising them. I had one person call me up and ask me how to negotiate pay review conversations.
Yep.
But I'm best friends with the person that he reports into, so I didn't tell my friend what I was doing, but I was helping him. But I think that these are the things that really matter. And I know it sounds cliche, but you talked about that. I think there's so many managers that talk about team first and all of that bullshit. But I know that if someone came to me and said, so-and-so in your team has just done an amazing job on that project, you should be really proud, that would make me feel really good. If someone came to me and said, Sam, you've done an amazing job on this project, you should be really proud, I'd be like, nah, let's just not talk.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a British thing.
Maybe. Yeah. No.
It doesn't do anything for me.
Same. I'm the first to say in a room where people are not in the room, oh no, so-and-so did this. Oh no, this was really good because so-and-so did that. I'm always, pushing the team forward. And in terms of those contacts, I couldn't tell you how many CVs I've rewritten in my time where people from various companies that I've worked in have reached out because they're looking for something else, and I'll always have the time to go through CVs, go through portfolios. A lot of in-store VM teams, actually. So even VMs who I necessarily haven't worked with closely, like they've not been directly in my team, I've been in the office, I do get a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll always have time to support. And because I've got contacts in different brands, I've managed to help quite a few people out as well, where they've been applying for a role in another company and I already know somebody in the company, so I can offer a bit of insight on how to prepare for the interview or what kind of things to look for on a store walkthrough. So I'll always have endless time for others that approach me wanting a bit of advice or help in VM.
It's I always do it for that reason. Like if anyone came to me, I'll always help them out. But honestly, it's been one of the best client acquisition strategies I've ever had. Like if any of my old team come to me and they want resume support, CV support, then my graphic design team, I'll devote some time to help them out. And the number of additional leads that's generated is incredible. Never intended to, because I think if you do it for that reason, it won't happen. But if you just do it with the thought of no kind of like return on that, and just do it because it's the right thing to do, it tends to just come around. I don't know why, it just has.
I completely agree with you.
It's crazy.
Just being nice and being pleasant actually works out fine in the long run.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be any more deep than that, than just being a nice person. Totally agree with you.
Another question for you around this topic, the last one, which is what are you chasing now that your younger self wouldn't have understood when it comes to success?
It's probably balance. So where I was chasing titles, progression,
cash,
money, thinking you have to be super busy and everything's 100 miles an hour all the time and that's the best way to succeed, actually having a balance in your life, that not necessarily time-wise, but more peace in your mind, that you've got your balance when you're at home and you're relaxed versus the projects that you're really excited about day to day. I think this sense of calm. I didn't think I'd be chasing after calm. I thought I'd be chasing after chaos. And actually, I've been through the chaos. And now I'm sort of coming back down the other side a little bit.
Balance is so underrated.
Yeah.
The best thing that I get to do now is wake up in the mornings. I get to give my son, who's 18 months old, get up with him, play with him for a little bit, give him his breakfast, then start work. Probably end up having to work later because of the US stuff, but I absolutely don't care.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I control my time, I get to spend that moment with him, and that I would never be able to do if I was in a corporate role. I'd be on the train into work.
Yeah, totally. I think controlling your own time is a really key one, actually, because it's which days you are choosing to be in an office, in a home environment, being traveling. If you need to take any time off, you might want to spend a whole Sunday catching up on emails, and that's fine if that's what works for you. Or like you said, working with brands on different time scales, that's always been something that obviously both of us have worked through a lot, but you've got control of that. And yeah, agree.
Do you also think, because I think it's definitely something with me, I'm completely aligned with you. It's not about chasing the money now. I think I'm not going to stand here and say that I'm not chasing the money as in I want the money. Like, we all need money to survive, but I think that it used to be that that was the one thing that you chased, and you were like single-minded on that. Now I think it's more important to chase the meaningful things around it, and then that will just naturally come as a byproduct. But I think you mentioned there, when it came to leading teams, I think impact is way more important now, like having, and how you measure impact on what you're doing and the people that you're able to support and raise up. What do you think? What's your take on impact?
Yeah. And I suppose Gymshark is the most relevant to that, because it's such a high energy brand where we were doing things that created such a buzz, and that impact on the team, but also on consumers. Just that buzz, I absolutely loved that. And yeah, you fly back home from somewhere absolutely exhausted from working a crazy couple of weeks, but it's so worth it, because that feeling that you've got from delivering whichever project is so important than just, a mediocre day at work where you've ticked all your to-do list off, but you're not feeling anything from it. No, it's, yeah.
Right, we're going to talk now about the second lesson, which is more around leadership and the fact that it is all centered on people. This was something that was really important to you. So maybe you can start by giving us your take on what leadership actually means.
So my most important meetings of the week are definitely my team one-to-ones. And I know a lot of managers will cancel their one-to-ones, move them. They're often meetings that are squeezed in amongst other meetings. I think they're the most important meetings, because as long as the team are set up, everyone's clear on what's going on in the business, what priorities have changed or moved, is there any blockers that you need to support with. As long as the team are ready and know what's going on, then everyone is fine. So I can never understand why that would be a meeting that you would sacrifice. I'm like, that's the ones that you really need. So in terms of, managing the team on a day-to-day basis, it's being that removing of blockers, listening to anything where you can just jump in, support, move any deadlines. I often ask my team for deadlines rather than give deadlines, because actually it's like, you tell me what are you working through and what actually is feasible. So giving a piece of work and say, I want this done by tomorrow, is not really going to help at all. There's certain deadlines which obviously you can't move, like a store opening or a launch date, but everything in between I think is kind of up for negotiation. And then the progression piece, and anyone in your team that's got the passion and the fire in their belly to want to succeed, it's like that makes me really want to fight for them too. So being a leader, I think, is just being a human, and where I would have started out, and I thought being a manager would be going through the task list, because it was all just, we all need to get this done, and it's quite a robotic, way of working. I think as the years go on, you realise it's just about people and being human, supporting, and then if everybody individually is set up, then the team is going to succeed all together. So
I completely agree. I think also when you cancel your team one-to-ones, it's also sending a message to your team about the value that you place on them and their impact. And I don't understand it. It's like you said, it's like you're getting your priorities completely mixed up, but so many people do that.
It's a weird one. And I guess it's all of the trade meetings and those kind of business function meetings which do take over. And like I said, I'm not in them now, I'm freelance. But as long as the team is set up for the week, then you're all fine. So you have to start there.
What's the one thing you love about leadership the most, or getting to have that level of responsibility?
It is seeing the rest of the team succeed. It's seeing the development in people who come into the business either very junior or maybe lacking confidence or lacking skills in certain areas, and actively seeing that progress and that you've been a part of that to support that person. And then just the team bond. So I've been lucky to work in lots of brands where as a VM team we've been super tight. Like I said, we're all going to be at my 40th. So those connections that you've made. And when you work in VM and you work night shifts and you work super long hours sometimes and you travel and you spend breakfast, lunch and dinner together, it kind of makes you really close as well, because you're all really in the trenches together. And you have to be a super tight team, because how could you spend 17 hours a day with someone, that you're not that tight with? So
trauma bonding.
I didn't want to use
VMs
the word, but
VMs are all trauma bonded. I think that it's such a important thing. It really is. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, what's the hardest lesson leadership has taught you? Actually, can I go back one? I've got one other question.
Yes.
Then we'll come back to that one. One other that came into my mind, and I've gone back now, is you've obviously been there's the leadership part of leading teams over a long period of time when you're in a corporate environment, but now you've moved more into this consultancy world, and you're still leading teams on a project basis. How have the principles changed? Are they the same? Are they different? Like when it comes to leading in that capacity, have you just applied the same principles, or what's the difference, or is it the same?
I think because you're not technically leading and you're not a manager, it's more of a collaboration, but you're sharing your expertise and experiences. So you still need to bring everyone on the journey with you. So it's still coaching, I would say, because I would be, for example, in Wax at the moment where there isn't currently a VM team. So I've come in as to put things in place for VM. So it's working closely with the rest of the teams and almost showing how I would approach this and how I've done this in other brands and good practice of processes that we need to put in place. So it's not at all managing, because these people are my peers, but it's informing them on good ways of doing VM and bringing people on the journey along with me so that we can all collectively make the VM better. It's not just me. I mean, it's like everyone in the business that's involved, whether it's retail or merchandising or the brand team or the styling team. So I'd say it just transitions more to coaching and collaboration.
And knowing some of the people that you've worked with even HOKA, I would probably go further than that and say that I think that you have that ability to make people feel comfortable and take the stress away. And I guess that you will have had to have applied all of the lessons that you've learned through your career to be able to do that, to come into a project where a team are under a lot of pressure to deliver it, and you're coming in as an external that initially knows nothing about that brand, and to make them very quickly feel like they're in safe hands with you. I think that's something that can't be taught, and it just comes with experience.
Yeah, that's HOKA's a good example, because yeah, like you said, I've sort of helicoptered into HOKA to support with some new store openings, and then helicoptered back out again. And actually, I'd not met any of the teams at all. So, like you said, you're the first one on site, and that's the first time you're meeting. I definitely listen. So I don't know everything about HOKA. Of course, I don't. I don't work there. So as I could be the VM expert, and I can share my view on good ways of approaching the new store opening, but then I'm very interested to listen to the team's feedback, so they'll point out to me the best sellers, or they'll know things about their customers in their stores that I wouldn't possibly know. And it's that just listening to each other. So then they're learning from me about VM, and I'm learning from them about product and the brand. And as long as you're collaborating together, you're not, fighting for who's got the final say, then the results are good. And like the store openings we've done at HOKA, it's been super smooth, lovely
Seamless.
experience. Yeah, seamless, lovely teams. So yeah, that's a good example.
So let's go back to that question.
Yeah.
What's something you believed about leadership? I've gone back to the wrong question.
The tough lessons in.
Yeah, the tough lessons. Yeah.
Oh, it's always
the
going to
hardest
be
lesson?
the restructures, isn't it? In a retail environment, we've been through them 100 times over, and that is really, really tough when the business are making decisions which are not your decision, and you don't agree with it, but you have to deliver the news, and you have to navigate through that. And when it's people you really, really care about, that's always going to be the hardest thing, not just in VM, but in any environment. And I think the only way through is to navigate the best case scenario of a bad case scenario. So whether it's supporting on CVs and, opening doors in other brands for opportunities, and just being human and understanding that it's a horrible environment that you need to work through. I think that's something that working in retail will just keep happening. There's often cuts, there's often restructures, there's often redundancies, and that's like a super hideous part of the job because it's not in your control. But how can you then best be a human to those teams who are going through it when you're just as sad as they are, but you're kind of trying to hold it together for the team as well?
Yeah, I've nothing to comment on that. I think they're awful moments, and I think the nature of creative professions is the we're probably under the spotlight more than most. So, yeah, really tough times. Other question I had for you was, what's something that you believed about leadership 10 years ago that you no longer believe?
Probably that it's more about tasks and results. So probably just this is what we need to achieve. This is the deadline. We all need to do X, Y, and Z to get there. And not necessarily me personally, but I think there's a bit of a perception sometimes that the more senior you are, you're quite tough. And actually over the years I've worked with some leaders who do put on this facade that they're super tough, and actually it's quite unnecessary. And you've worked with leaders who are just really nice people, and you can be really pleasant and nice and also be a good leader. It doesn't mean that you're
weak.
Yeah. And I think that perception has definitely changed over my career, not necessarily in myself, but looking to people above me as well and how they've behaved. And I have been lucky to work with some super nice, very normal, down-to-earth humans, and actually I think they are the best leaders.
On just building on that as well, I think that when I was at the very beginning of my career, I always assumed that the further you'd go up the leadership ladder, the more people had their shit figured out and that they knew what they were doing, and it was much cleaner, more organized, structured, and the vision coming from the top down was always super thought out. And I now realize that isn't the case at all. Regardless of where you are within a leadership scale, we're still these children that have grown up into adult bodies, trying to figure stuff out based on the information we have to hand at the time. I just assumed that was the biggest thing for me. Was I'd be in these meetings and think, wow, we're really figuring this out from zero.
Completely agree. Everyone's just winging it in some way or another, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think also just as an entire brand, on the outside, you often think, oh, that brand has obviously must run like clockwork internally, and you join and you're like, oh, no, they're all the same. We're all just figuring out everything here. Even brands that have been around for decades, you join internally and you're like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah,
Still a long way to go.
The newer startup brands are naturally trying to figure out as they go along, because they've probably had this exponential growth, and they're just trying to then go back and figure out what the processes and the standard operating procedures need to be, or and then, like you said, the brands that have been going for 20, 30 years have still got the same problems. Because maybe what they've been doing in the past isn't now working, and they're trying to figure out what the new strategy is. It's crazy, but we love it.
We do love it,
and we keep doing it. This is one that I think I really want to dig into with you, which is, how do you build trust with your teams?
I honestly just think that comes with time. So I think when you're confident in that you know what you're doing and you know your own capabilities, you don't need to join a brand all guns blazing. Like, I've worked here and there and everywhere, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I actually think just being completely normal and working like a normal person, people then start to see, oh, actually this person does know what they're talking about, and they're not in any way a threat, and actually this is fine. So I think it's just patience and coming in again with that sense of calm, that you don't need to really outwardly prove yourself. I'm certainly not the loudest person in the room, or I'm not shouting about what I think we should do or my experience. I almost come in quite quietly, and then the team realise they're in safe hands, and then that bond starts to be built over time.
Yeah, so. It just building on what you said. And I think I get what you're saying here, which is it's also about being consistent in how you're operating, behaving. I think that builds a huge amount of trust with teams when they can see that kind of consistency happening. And another big thing that's really helped me, I'm wondering if it's helped you, is actually following through on the things that you say you're going to do.
Yeah, that's definitely true as well. And all of these things do just come with time. And I think that people, just as humans, are naturally wary. Like, when you get a new manager or a new person on the team come in, you're kind of sussing out what are they all about. And when you realise actually these people do have your back when you're not in the room, and actually they are making these opportunities happen, and they are singing your praises, and realise that your work's been called out when you're not there, then that kind of relief sets in, and they realise actually this person's okay, and they're not out to get me, and they're not, there's no malicious intent here. It's actually fine. Yeah. But I think that's like a natural human not in VM, any business, when a new person comes in, it's a bit, what are they going to be like?
I know, no, it is completely normal. Lesson 3 is about imposter syndrome, and that's it's actually a good thing and it should be embraced. So what is your take on imposter syndrome? What does it mean to you?
That's an interesting one, because I've worked in brands where their focus is on retail, and e-com's been a really tiny part of the business, and actually all the focus is on retail. But then I've also worked in brands where it's been all digital and e-com business, and retail is completely new. So it can go one way or the other within different people. You're either coming in as the expert, and actually you know about VM and what should happen, versus VM is so new to the business because retail is new to the business, and it's then building that trust. And then sometimes you could be in a meeting and almost doubt yourself, and it's almost having to like pep talk yourself. It's like, no, I do know, I am right. But then when you're sort of caught up in like a real digital focus, you're like, am I? Is this how we should be doing it? And I think it's just, pep talking yourself that you do know, and you have been doing this for a long time, and it is the right way forward.
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome, it really is. If you're feeling it, then it means that you're pushing outside of your comfort zone, and that's kind of probably where you need to be if you're going to grow. Uh, but no, I can completely appreciate work. It's not just you can be a VM, and depending on how the business is weighted, it
Yeah,
can
it's very different.
be very, very different.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about imposter syndrome, is there anything that you have had to do in the past or even to this day scares you or really tests you?
From a task perspective, nothing scares me. I think you could throw any task at me and I will figure out and make it happen, which I also think is what's good with freelance, because you could honestly just give me a random list of things to do and I would know nothing about it and I would figure it out. When I was in Accessorize in VM, obviously, when we went into lockdown and a lot of the business were put on furlough, I temporarily looked after social media and PR, which was so weird because we were in lockdown, I was working from home and I knew nothing about social media and PR, but I kind of bumbled along and did what we needed to get done that was right at that time. And definitely I've come into roles like Gymshark where there's part of the, like VM is so wide, it's styling, it's windows, it's layouts, it's commercial, it's print, it's signage. But in Gymshark, a lot of it was digital as well. So managing video screen content in stores was reasonably new to me. I mean, we had video content in Accessorize, but not on the scale of Gymshark. So you're then very quickly learning, and you're also not claiming to be the expert in that. So it's getting the right advice and the right people and just understanding the process of, okay, I'm not an expert, but how do we get from A to B and who do I need to speak to make that happen? So in terms of tasks, no, you could definitely throw anything at me and that wouldn't scare me at all. Out of my comfort zone is public speaking. It's
Like podcasts?
yeah, just really like sitting in like cream sort of boucle chairs. It's just a nightmare. No, on a stage, it's not.
It's different, yeah.
Yeah, public speaking in, to a group, doing a model store walkthrough, fine. The thought of standing on a stage with like a lectern and hundreds of people, no, that's probably something that is not on my top list of hobbies. I'd find ways around it. I've had to do these kind of things in my, career, and I'm much more comfortable with somebody else if you can bounce off each other. But I'd say that's probably where it would scare me.
Do you know what?
Most.
Do you think do you think having kind of known, I've known you for like a year now. Obviously, I don't know you in like a super, super deep way. But do you think that fear is more that you're just not somebody that feels like they need to be front and center? You would much rather be the person that's championing your team, putting your team forward. Because I get it, I'm the same. Like being put in that situation where I'm the one that people are looking at. I can do it like we're doing now, but I feel way more comfortable if I'm building my team up and my team are doing it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think you're right about that needing to be front and centre. Like, not at all. I'd much rather be in the background. I like to get everything done to a really high standard, but I don't need to be the face of it. That's what we've done. And yeah, definitely if it was a team thing on stage, happy days, would happily do that. But yeah, just me on my lonesome, does not sound very fun. No. Hopefully as freelance I won't have to do that. Hopefully no stages required.
I wouldn't rule it out. It might happen. You might even get a public speaking gig. So.
Yeah, exactly. Be my next one.
Yeah. Moving on to the last lesson, which is about really understanding in life what really matters, and within a personal and a work context. But before, just to kind of ease into it in a softer way, what matters less to you now than it used to be? Maybe through a work lens and a personal lens.
Yeah, I mean, what we spoke about earlier, title means nothing, honestly. As a freelance now, whatever role I go into, call me whatever you like. Honestly, not bothered. It's what we spoke about with balance, and it's that peace of mind. So when your role is almost interfering in your personal life, I think that's when you have got a bad balance, and not time wise. The working the long hours is fine, but when you're thinking about work outside of work and you're spending time with your friends and family, but the back of your mind or the pit of your stomach, you're thinking about something else, that's where a line is kind of crossed for me. And what's important to me now is not having that. It's being present in your personal time, with your friends and your family and what you're doing outside of work. And then it's being 100% focused on the role that you're doing then in the job. Like I said, without going freelance, without doing the BAU, you're so hyper focused on the tasks you're doing. You're really all in. But then when you're out of work, you're all out as well.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, you mentioned it at the very beginning, and I think a lot of people feel this. It's the just getting fixated with your job title, it's only when you don't have it that you probably and I'm interested really quickly to understand if you had this, but I know that when I went from a corporate world, worked so hard to build up this job title, probably wasn't so much just for me, but it was so because I was interested in how other people perceived me, and I believed that I needed that. That went away, and I had this moment where I had this real crisis of like identity, where it was gone. But once you get through that and get through the other end, you really, it's quite liberating not having it.
I just think corporate worlds almost invite those behaviours, and because everybody's almost benchmarked against each other, even in different departments. So whether you're head of IT or you're head of visual merchandising, you're then looking at other heads of and thinking, well, should I be more senior, or should I be working towards this? But then, like, how can you possibly compare IT and visual merchandising? It's so random. But in a corporate environment, it's almost laid out like that. So I think it forces people to behave like that and want to go after the next progression step and the next title or the next level or however it is in that business. But when you're out of the corporate world, it suddenly means nothing.
No, I agree. If you could go back and give your younger self one lesson, what would it be?
This is partly my age, but I probably wouldn't go to uni. So I loved uni. I mean, great life experience. Again, made loads of friends, loved it. But how expensive it is to go to uni now versus 20 years ago when I went, I think you're going for the life experience, but I don't know about the career progression. So if it was not necessarily going back in time, but if I was 18-year-old right now in this year, I would go and do an internship and just get straight into a brand that I want to work for in the most junior role in the business and work my way up. I think my approach would be different to education, probably.
Yeah, totally. I would say I've kind of got a blend of team that are kind of uni educated and have worked their way up. It's not something that I specifically look for on a resume. I think, again, even from my own experience, I think I'd go back and tell like 18-year-old Sam when he was going through his human biology exams with his best friend, and we studied for like 3 months, and we both got terrible D results, even though we were probably the people that studied them the most. I think you get fixated that it's all about results, academia. And I think I would tell myself it's okay. There's going to be this thing that people are going to talk about called EQ, emotional intelligence, and if you can do that, which you will be able to, you're going to be all right. I think, to your point, I think people are just fixated on these academic results. That are they really worth it now in kind of what we do? I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know whether I would go back and live the university experience again, personally.
I don't regret it at all. It was absolutely brilliant. It was great fun. But to the amount of debt that you'd go into now, I don't know that having a degree has necessarily got me any further in my career. I think I would probably be in the same place if I'd just worked from the ground up and done it through pure experience rather than with a degree. Because actually I think you learn more in real life and internships and work placements than you probably do in your course anyway. But yeah, purely just from an expense point of view. From a fun point of view, definitely.
You'd still go.
Yeah.
Going to throw some quick fire questions at you,
Okay.
just to close out the interview. Really quick answers, don't need any long answers. Failure is?
Part of the journey, don't dwell on it.
Nice. Leadership is?
Essential to just being a good human and progressing your team.
Creativity is?
Collaboration. I think creativity comes from many different departments coming together.
Confidence is?
A facade, and then the more you practice, it just starts to come naturally.
Success is?
For me now, balance. But success is very different for different people at different times in their lives. So for me now, I'm going to say balance, but I'll speak again in a couple of months.
Kindness is?
Really important and makes a great leader.
Retail needs more?
I think boundaries. We work excessive hours in retail, and we work through the night, and we do some crazy things that other professions maybe don't, and we're not saving lives. So I think there's, get some grafters in retail.
And then someone comes in and tells you it doesn't feel
Yeah,
right,
yeah, of
with
course.
no context.
Yeah, and then you'd start again. Yeah.
And the industry needs less?
Financial instability and recessions, because we've just been living through it since 2008, and that makes our lives continuously difficult.
And then one last question. If every listener was to forget everything that we just talked about, which is definitely possible, what would be your one lesson?
I think just to go with your instincts and behave in a way that's naturally to you, and you don't need to be fighting against what doesn't feel natural. So like we said, you don't have to be the loudest, most aggressive person in the room. Just be normal.
And great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We got it done.
We did. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.